Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Roll. I'm the Assistant Executive Director with the North Florida PGA. Thrilled to have you all here today with us on this webinar presented by a longtime partner, over 5-year partner of the North Florida PGA, Tag Marshall, along with Jeremy Decaminada, North Florida PGA member from the Concession Golf Club, and Bodo Sieber with Tag Marshall, the CEO of Tag Marshall. Again, thrilled to have you all here. One thing that I think is really important in today's game, as the game continues to modernize and we continue to develop and move the game forward, is obviously pace of play, making it a good experience for people who are playing your course. And everyone knows about time constraints, and that's something that is a real world issue that we all deal with in golf. Well, Tag Marshall is a terrific company that's going to help provide technology, help provide resources, great customer service that can really help you change that aspect to a club, and obviously change the member experience, the guest experience, the public experience. And you're going to hear that from Jeremy, from his work with Tag Marshall. So look forward to having you all on the call today. As a reminder, you do get a PDR for being on this call today. We'll be able to get that set up for you as the cycle is getting closer to ending here on June the 15th. But again, welcome. Appreciate everyone being here. Bodo, Jeremy, I'll let you take it from here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brandon. And thanks for the kind introduction. You're speaking about time pressure, and you're one of the victims, right? You've got an event to jump into, and thanks for making the time to introduce. We obviously really appreciate the North Florida PGA section and the good work that you do in the area and growing the game and being a good partner to us. Very excited to have Jeremy on board for our expert session. 3 ways the concession uses tech to deliver sub-4-hour rounds and better member experiences. Jeremy, welcome. How are you this morning, and how are you doing?
I'm good, Bodo. How are you?
I'm very well, and I'm very excited. My job is
Absolutely.
to be the pace master and keep us on time. We've got a lot to get through in our hour, and we also want to encourage a few questions from a housekeeping point of view. If you have any questions at any time, shoot them through in the chat or in the Q&A. We will look to answer when and as we can and as appropriate. And then in the end, there might be 3-4 minutes for questions too. Keep shooting them our way. We're here to help. And also, we're mindful that obviously there's different use cases and every course will be different. But I'm very excited to dig into the concession and how they run their operation. And on that note, Jeremy, please do us the favor of an introduction to the course, where you're located, what are you famous for, and then also tell us a bit about how you got to be the head golf pro at the Concession Golf Course.
Yeah, so a quick little bit about myself. Born and raised just south of Detroit, Michigan. Graduated from Florida Gulf Coast in the PGM program. After that, I spent 4 years at Valhalla, where I was introduced to Tag Marshall. And then in 2019, came over here to be the first assistant for 5 years. And then a little bit over a year ago, took over the head golf professional position. The concession, located in Bradenton, Florida, just north of Sarasota, kind of right on that line. 18-hole championship golf course. We got a 9-hole amazing par 3 course. It is one of the toughest golf courses in Florida, so you can imagine pace is definitely an issue that we need to stay on top of. And we've hosted a few events in the past. Most recently, we had the 2021 World Golf Championship at Colin Morikawa won. We had the inaugural World Champions Cup in 2023 that Team USA won. And in most recent news, we're going to host the next 3 years of the Senior PGA Championship.
Congratulations on getting the nod for that. That'd be very exciting, and 3 years in a row. And there's a good reason for that, right? Where's that hosted this season? Remind me.
It's just at Congressional last week in Maryland. So yeah, we went up there for a few days. Got to know everybody, and we're looking forward to it.
Exciting. So yeah, thanks for again for taking the time. Obviously, great for us that you got to know about our program at Valhalla, and I remember way back in 2017. In a different world pre-COVID. We started working with the team there. The head pro was Steve Haag at the time, and it's now Kyle Kramer, the fantastic team. Obviously, they hosted another big event last season.
Just a little bit.
A minor little event, and yeah, but great to see that how far you've come in your professional career, and also that you're one of those pros that is progressive and looking to dial into technology to help you do your job best for your golfers, and that's what we're here to learn about. A quick introduction to Tag Marshall. Um, as Brandon said, we've been around the block now for quite a while, and we obviously extremely grateful to be working with some of the very best golf courses out there. The Concession obviously is well known in North Florida. There's Last year we had Pinehurst, Valhalla, and the Old Course at St. Andrews hold majors. That was very special for us. We even tracked the Ladies Open at the Old Course from a pace point of view. And this year, Royal Portrush obviously hosting the Open Championship. But what's most exciting for us is that we get to work with outstanding managers and keep our ear close to the ground. What you need in terms of where you want the technology to develop, and then we can take that and build it back into how we present the system and the features that we build, and also the strategies that we can develop. And obviously, the more data we ingest, and this is now 10 billion data points, right? Every round of golf is a couple of hundred data points, and now you times that by 75 million rounds over two cards, over four players. That's a lot of data that we're ingesting, and with machine learning and AI, that system just gets smarter and smarter as we go. So lots of direct insight from the ground, but also lots of data insight. And it's only just the beginning for us, even though we've been doing this now for 10 years. So let me jump back in with Jeremy. So one of the things we want to discuss first is the player experience, which is at all important and sometimes elusive thing that we're trying to get right. I'm going to launch a poll for all of you on here to give your opinion and see what you think. But I'm also going to ask Jeremy, what do you think are the top 3 experience factors that the players want us to get right on this list here in front of you? Let me just launch a poll, and what would you peg 1, 2, and 3 out of this list?
Yeah, I mean, as far as player experience, I think most important to people, you want to play a course in great condition. You want to play a course that's not going to make you play 5 or 6 hours. So pace and flow would be extremely important. And then personally, I think, when you're thinking about going out and playing golf, who you're going to play golf with and what kind of people you're playing with. So who's in my group, I guess, would be the third most important.
Yeah, very nice. You might argue course design important, but that is obviously a variable that is very difficult to change. Course conditioning, you know how important that is, because there's always more budget that gets deployed, and that photo in the background speaks for itself, right? A lot of effort going into that at the Concession too, and for good reason. And obviously, I actually saw this really cool comparison the other day. A photo from Pebble Beach in 1973, and then a photo from Pebble Beach now, and it's completely different world,
Yeah.
right? It was okay to have the roughs and some of the fairways fade to yellow a little bit at some point in the season, and now completely unthinkable, right? And the conditioning expectations of the players are obviously sky high the more they see the Masters and Quail Hollow and so on the big screen, right? Let me end the poll and see what our guests have voted here. I can share those results. So I'm seeing course conditioning, pace and flow of play coming out tops, and number 3, playing partners, and then close 4th is accessibility, tee time availability, which is obviously a big topic too. Yeah, and we see the results of that twofold. One, we'll try and book around in season this weekend. It's booked, right? And also try and join a good private club. Welcome to waiting for 2 years, right?
Yeah,
Accessibility,
absolutely.
time availability is a big factor. Um, Thank you for sharing. Let's jump into some of the research. Just to back up, Jeremy, so the USGA has done a 20,000 odd survey with golfers and also to figure out what is most important to them. And course conditioning rises to the top, undoubtedly the most important item. And then, as you suggested, playing partners, who's in my group, right? Don't pay me with that weird single. And then lastly, pace and flow of play, right? So those are the things that players want us to focus on and get right. If you wanted to improve your course conditioning by 30% and your greenkeeper girl is like, show me the money, right? So what would that cost you? Just I'm imagining like if you had that ambition, like that would be an immense undertaking.
Yeah, if you wanted something to kind of get that much better, yeah, it's definitely you got to throw a lot of money at it. And
Mm.
obviously there's budgets in most. If
Yeah, that's Jeremy, I don't know if we're losing your sound here, but I just want to make sure. Just give me a sound test quickly. Oh, we lost you there. I don't know if. Okay, here we go. I think we're back. I don't know if it's just a connection.
can you hear
Um,
me?
yeah, we got you. So
Awesome.
the yeah, course conditioning obviously is we're always pushing the boundaries and it's normally when it comes down to budgets, like how much more can we find, right? Rather than where can we save? And sure things are getting smarter and more resource efficient, but there's always going to be more money found and spent here. So the question is, well, what's the other big factor? And what if we wanted to improve our pace of play by 30%, by 50%? Does it cost millions? No, absolutely not, right? And there's solutions, and that's what we're here to chat about. Just quickly to close out, so the NGCOA, which is the National Golf Course Owners Association, which I would recommend all of you join because they do, if you haven't, they do amazing lobbying work. At the White House and with big legal battles on behalf of the industry and so on. And it's just also a fantastic resource to tap into. They did a sense check and a pulsing of operators and owners and what they want to focus on. And again, pace and flow of play came out top three at 84%. So it is a key item. Let me just jump into one other point of research here. That's another broad-based USGA study that was done with the University of Wisconsin. And they were looking at how can we go beyond that list of 10 things and what's a golfer experience made of. And they looked at actually analyzing what are all the touch points in a golfer experience. And a touch point is pre-round, booking a round, which might happen, or in most cases online, driving through the gate, offloading your bags, being greeted, yes, no, is there water out on the course? What's the halfway house service? Are there restrooms? All of these are touch points, right? And either they're available or they're not. Either they're well done or they're not, right? And they figured out that there's 1,000 touch points, which you can get to very quickly because you're also including post round, right? What's the sentiment? Are you asking for my feedback? All of those things. And then into booking the next round, that's where the cycle starts again. And they wanted to understand which of those are perfect delighters, which are perfect frustrators, right? Which are making players deliriously happy, we have to get it right, and which are going to ruin their day if we don't get it right. And then in between, there's all sorts of middle and neutral, right? Whether they or not, the golfers don't really mind. But what was really interesting in the outcomes here is that both on the top end, in terms of satisfiers, and on the bottom end in terms of dissatisfiers, are pace-related items. And the big dissatisfier, let's start there, is speed of other players. Big surprise, right? If other people in front of me hold me up, makes me furious. But then very close to that corrective pace of play actions. So I don't like it if somebody comes to me and says, hey, you're slow, like get on with it, right? That's both of these are the worst worst experience touch points. And then on the flip side, positive ranger etiquette, right? If this is a positive, constructive interaction, and then information provided about pace of play expectations via the scorecard or at the starter or in your booking communication, wherever that is, and those float really high. And the top one is positive ranger etiquette. So I would connect the information about pace and pace expectations is immediately tied to other people's speed. Because me as a player, I don't think I'm slow ever, right? It's always other people. So I want there to be lots of information so that they don't get in my way. Jeremy, what is your sense of how polar this presents?
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that 100%. So we have our professional staff does the rangering. We don't have a marshal. So we're the face that you see. So we're the ones that get to know all the members. So we gotta correct their pace out there when they get slow. And obviously, etiquette and friendliness of the marshal or the player assistant is extremely important to us. You don't want to go out there and go yell at a member per se, and that would obviously go on the dissatisfier side of the screen there. So we're out there obviously being as nice as possible. It's pretty simple to do. Hey guys, how's your round going? Hey, I just want to keep you informed. You're getting about 8 minutes behind, and most of the time, their response is absolutely no problem. We'll pick it up. Instead of the opposite of, hey, speed up. You guys are slow. You're holding everybody up. So yeah, so being the rangers out there to keep pace moving, that's extremely important to us. And then the information provided. Our members know very well what pace is, and our members usually don't have an issue. We do for the guests that come in, we say, hey, we got 2 rules here. You have fun and you play in under 4 hours. And then, so we have a lot of our play, at least 50% of our play is guest play. So that's kind of where you start to see the issue. Like I said, it's a very difficult golf course. We have 36 rooms on site here. So a lot of the times throughout the season, we're having one member bring out 20 guests to play a 3-day tournament with them. Those guests probably have never played here or very few. So when you get them on a tough course, they might not be able to play as quick, and they won't know it until you say anything. But when they do bring out those 20 guests, we're usually running a tournament for them, a Ryder Cup tournament or something, whatever they want. And on every scorecard we print for them, we put that pace of play on each hole.
Yeah, I think you're making some great points, and obviously you have designed your workflows and your rules and also your culture to be successful here. I just want to, for the audience, just consider 3 things as takeaway. The first one is, do we really need to call, if we have a ranger or marshal, do we need to call them that, right? Because already that positioning of that role is hurting the interaction and players are defensive. So in your case, well, you're using your golf staff, your player assistants, and this obviously where technology helps. You don't need a warm body out there looking for problems. So the system helps you, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But just considering flipping that role and positioning it into a player assistant. Some call it course ambassador, but it's not that ranger, marshal, negative corrective pace of play interaction connotation, right? So just flipping that on its head, consider that. And the second one, in line with that, and alongside having constructive information provided about pace, how do we deliver that message if we do have to have a conversation? And as I said earlier, and obviously I'm poking the bear here, a marshal coming over and saying, hey, you're slow, get on with it, is never going to go down well with players, right? And no matter where, even at a $30 green fee golf course, don't do that, right? And just flipping that positioning again on its head, this is, hey guys, you're a bit out of position, help us get back in a position. And that can be half a hole, it can be 5 minutes, whatever it is, right? So I'm not judging your ability to play fast. Right now, this situation is you're out of position. So positioning both a bit differently is very helpful. And then the third one is actually one of your colleagues down at Kinsale Golf Course in Naples. They're also quite sharp in how they're creating a culture around pace. So what he told us recently is that when somebody asks what's the course record, he says 3 hours 25.
Right? I love that.
That is actually fantastic, right? Because we're immediately switching into, hey, sure, I'll tell you what the course record is, but really, how quickly can you play this course, right? And just flipping that around a bit is quite fun. Yeah, one last point of research. We're data geeks, right? So we always want to dig into that and be guided by it. So this comes from one of our strategic partners, which is called Players First, and what they do really well is post-round surveys, automated surveys that then feed a nice range of information back to you as a manager to look at what are we doing well, where are red flags, are we serving our members and guests well? And they've got a really high response rate, and then you really have that real-time post-round feedback and sentiment in one place. So, and they've collected more than north of 1 million surveys across the US in the last couple of years. And you must remember that we love the National Golf Foundation, right? But sometimes their data sets are small, 500 golf courses, right? But this is 1 million players, so it's big. And what they found is that the Net Promoter Score, where it was at a high point in 2020, guess why? Because everyone was so happy to be out playing golf and be free and get some fresh air with friends during COVID. But that dropped off very quickly, and it's actually dropped by 8 to 10 points. And so the Net Promoter Score is, for those of you who are not familiar, that is the rating out of 10. How likely are you to recommend this restaurant, airline, service, whatever it is, to your friends and colleagues and family? And the science is anyone doing 0 to 3 will say bad things, and I never want to come back, it was horrible. Anyone between 4 and 7 is not going to do it or say anything, it's just neutral. And anyone 8, 9, 10 above, 5-star, loved it, they're your promoters. And promoters are good for business, right? Because they tell others about it, but they're also more likely to spend more money with you, spend more time with you, try new things that you offer them. They're the people that really love and connect with your club. So the more and the higher that Net Promoter Score, the better for business. And industry data here shows that we're not doing as well as we should, right, as an industry. So this is where, again, pace and flow is so critical because it can kill around, and everything that you've done, the conditioning, the service, the clubhouse, everything that you've put so much effort in pales, and people forget about it because they had this negative pace interaction and they felt the round was 5 hours, and that's all they remember. That's all they can think about and fume over. If you get it right, it shoots up. And here's an example from Pinehurst. They really know what they're doing, right? They are amazing in the experience that they're creating. And even them, by dialing into this and getting the pace dialed in and communicating well around it and getting better and better, have shot their number 2 Net Promoter Score up by 20 points, which is massive. That's incredible. And that's obviously great for business for them. But let's jump ahead, and how you get this right. And here's another amazing shot of your clubhouse. I'm not from Florida, so my question is always gators, no gators. Tell us a little bit about the view here and what the situation is.
Well, you'll definitely see plenty of gators around here, and that's one of their favorite ponds to live in. And sorry, what was the other question? I'll focus on your gators.
No, we're going to dig into the tech now. Now that we know that we can track the gators on you2, so and obviously that's good for your ball sales, right?
Absolutely.
In the pro shop. So before Jeremy tells us what they're using and how they stay on top of things at the concession, just a quick outline. So with Tag Marshal, you can track walking golfers, you can track golf carts in a hidden away manner, right? We've got a hidden away tracker, and that can go into any cart, any make. And then we also have a GPS front end that is super high definition, really bright. Golfers love it. And that obviously allows you to interact, and the system interacts automatically with the players, can do all the good sort of GPS value adds. But that's not for everyone, right? Like a classic traditional golf experience sometimes isn't right. And in other instances, it's the right solution. So we really got a broad product kit that serves anything from caddy, walking course to mixed mobility, where you've got some walkers, some carts, or even down to, hey, our golf course has got 200 private cards. How are we going to get them on a map, right? So we can do all of that for you. And what these units will do is they collect data, and then we spit out, after that's been processed, a real-time view of what happens on your golf course. That's got a lot of intelligence behind it and lots of variables in terms of the broader data of where your choke points, what's your optimal intervals, goal times, things like that. So we're going to dig into that. And what, tell us about what you have in play at the concession and how that looks for you guys.
So predominantly, we are a golf cart course. We do use caddies most often, but those are mostly for caddies. So we're sticking with that classic cart. And like you said, we kind of like that classic golf experience. So we don't have the screen on the cart or anything. So we like it hidden under there. And then the random, once a week maybe that we have a walking group, we have a handful of your classic mobiles that we give to the caddy. So yeah, but I'd say about 95% of our rounds are with a cart.
And do you run Yamahas or club cars?
We run club cars.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. So the hardware, again, what it does is we want it to be, don't have to touch it as much as possible, automated, right? And then we want that information to come through to course management. So 2 questions for you. Firstly, you can see the extent of the concession here, and there's lots of tree-lined areas, lots of water, quite a long stretch of turf too. I mean, some of the courses we work with are super compact, and this one, for you to get from top to bottom, probably takes quite a while. So having that line of sight is probably helpful. But 2 questions. Firstly, who have you got dialed in? Like, who looks at this at the club, and how? And then tell us a little bit about the colors and the logic and what you would do now that you see this information.
Yeah, so the good thing is we have this up on all 3 are in my computer in here. We have this up 24/7, and this is our main page that we're looking at throughout the day. And for our daily schedule, we have about four assistants during the season. We're going to have a daily schedule of them out there for at least an hour and a half a day. Hopefully not much more. So we have about 6 hours covered. That's usually the main part of the day. But again, we don't want our professional staff to just be out there, and when they see them, they're just out there to talk to somebody about pace. So we're now going out there for player experience all day. So when they see us, they're not just worried about their pace. We could say hi. We can, be the face out there of the club. But again, they all have this on our iPads, our tablets, their iPhones. So when they're out there, they're constantly looking at this and not just doing circles around the course to look for gaps or anything like that. So we can go straight to an issue if there is any out there. And then on your second question, if we're looking at this map, we're really focused on kind of those magenta ones, and mainly cart 28 there on 8 tee box. Hopefully cart 2 there up on 17. It's a little late to talk to them, but hopefully we've talked to them a few times on the course, and the magenta just means they're maybe 1 or 2, 3 minutes behind pace, and we talked to them, got them back to almost that 4-hour pace. But yeah, we're going to go straight to that cart 28 down there on 8 tee box, and honestly, we're going to click on that 27 as well. Make sure that they didn't tee off behind them and they let them through. But there was really no reason to focus on that 28. You could see the first 3 holes they were on pace. Looks like 4 they had a little bit of trouble. So you start to see that red come up. So you can start to kind of focus on them a little bit down there on the right. Yeah. So on hole 4, tough long par 4. Might have just struggled a little bit, but then you see it's consistent after that. 5, 6, and 7. So hopefully, if they haven't been talked to, obviously we're going to go talk to them on 8 tees and inform them, hey guys, you're 10 minutes behind. If you could just do your best to catch up to that group in front of you, that'd be greatly appreciated. And usually the response is perfect to that. Ideally, we're catching them on 5 or 6 as well. First and foremost, before they get to past 5 minutes, to where it's even more difficult to catch back up. And again, we might talk about this later. But when we talked to him on 28 there, we we're going to get the turn house ordered because we know the turn house. We don't have that built into the pace of play. We don't really we want it to be 4 hours of golf, and done. We have it built into our time, our hold times. But we're going to get their turn house order because if they're 10 minutes behind, they can easily be 20 minutes on hole 11T after they get through 10 in the turn. But yeah, we're gonna talk to them, and then we're gonna go back to cart 30 and a couple groups behind them. Say, hey guys, I know the group in front of you was holding you up a little bit. We talked to them. They're gonna be picking it up, so just make sure you stay on them.
Yeah, that's a really accurate workflow, I would say, right? You know exactly where you need to go, and then you obviously your team is really dialed into that. And then from tag marshal's point of view, obviously technology needs to do its job, and that job is to make your work a life easier so you can be successful. And in the golf space, that means spend more time building relationships and creating experiences, right? Rather than spend the time doing the work. And the work in this case is let's find the problems out on the golf course, right? Which is really hard to do if you don't have that line of sight. So it's a very tricky job. And the other thing that technology needs to do, it needs to talk to other systems, right? So that systems don't function in isolation, and you need to connect the dots. And that is why we have probably about 25 integrations now. And from what I understand, you guys use Jonas, and obviously that feeds from the tee sheet straight onto our system. So how's that helpful to you and the team? Yeah, just given that sort of live management opportunity with names.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes it a lot more efficient for us. So yes, we do use Jonas every morning. We open the website, open the sheet up. It's already connected. Everybody's in there. The outside staff at the podium out front, when the guys drop off their bags, they put them on a cart. They put that cart straight into Tag Marshal that they're going to be using. So when we're out there, you just click on whoever it is, you know exactly where you're going. And that also helps a lot with food and beverage delivery. So we have an app that you can order on course. So the bartender will radio in, hey, we got a delivery out to Mr. Smith, and then we can see where Mr. Smith's on the course pretty easily and go straight there.
And then you mentioned the halfway house sort of order process, and obviously a lot of our partners that have our screen system, they normally have some level of ad or prompt pop up that's geofence, and then people can use that interface to pre-order, and obviously that helps efficiencies. But you've got your own way of doing that. Yeah, it'd be great to share a little bit how that works at the concession.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we have an app built by Pacesetter. So recently, kind of throughout the season, we did start to notice that hole 10 was playing really slow, and we know hole 10 is not that tough of a course, or that tough of a hole. So we really dialed it into the turn house. People coming in and having to order mixed drinks. You got 4 or 8 mixed drinks getting. So you're sitting on the tee waiting for those to get made. So yeah, we kind of really started to see hole 10 slow down. So that's part of the reason why we get their orders early, but we also just added a geofence on our app. So when they get to 9T box, they get a push notification right away. Say, hey, please, put your order in for the turn, and all you got to do is hit button, and it takes you to the menu for pace of play, so we can keep you moving throughout the course.
Yeah, that's and we'll talk about that when you look at the data a bit more. But the opportunity is always incremental, right? So just shaving 2-3 minutes off on a number of holes or at the turn, that gives you that big outcome in the end, and just doing it consistently. So that is where aggregating data and really understanding what's happening is so helpful. And you speaking with so much confidence about, hey, our hole 10 slowed down by X. That's because you have this data at your fingertips. And I can just imagine how tricky it would be to try and get data if you don't have a system that goes and tracks everything for you. And then what do you base your decisions on, right? So it's that'll be quite tricky. Just a quick. Sometimes we get the questions, well, how quickly does this help us, right? If we dial it in, how fast until we see some results. So here's a really fun example from a golf course that sort of knows what they're doing because they've been doing it for 450 years, and it's the old course at St Andrews that all of you guys hopefully want to play at. But in their first season, and that's just a few months, they shaved the average round time from 437 to 419. And that's an amazing achievement, right? Because for them, what does that mean? While golfers come off the course happier, they can add a bit more capacity, which is worth a lot to them. And then also, many people visiting, they may want to play another 18 down the road and at Dambani or another golf course, right? So that's not all possible. And Baltusrol, yeah, it's obviously on the high and private end. Yeah, also they funneled all of their 36 hole player traffic onto one course during a renovation, and they thought, wow, this is going to be hard to manage. But dialing into the program more, they actually got that to sub 4-hour round average. And that's some of the opportunities in that the technology provides. So from a member oversight communication reporting, remember we want to look at three main items and of what it takes to be successful. The first one was proactive live management, that with the live map and that ecosystem helps you. Oversight communication reporting. So here's one other system feature called the track map, which is basically a history of every round that was ever played or tracked rather. With player names tied to tee time, how long did it take, what were the interactions after the golf course. Just talk a little bit how that's used at the concession and how that adds value to you guys.
So we use this quite often. So we implemented this year a ladder if your group plays slow. Usually I like to keep that to over 15 minutes, and if you're holding other people up. And you can see here, it shows you each time they are talked to on the course. On the bottom there, you can have their initials, so I know which assistant talked to them. And it also helps me while I'm watching them through the day. Did this slow group get talked to yet? If they did, hey, this group just got talked to on 10. All right, we don't have, they're out there, doing what they need to do, trying to pick them up. And then in our letter, just so I can prove, if you don't talk to a member on the course, they have no idea until, they finish the round and say, oh, it's been 4.5 hours. We played in 4.5 hours. They're going to have absolutely no idea throughout the day. So yeah, if we're sending this letter, I'm posting this, showing them, hey, you guys were talked to a few times throughout the course. I just want to keep you updated, keep you informed. We have this 4-hour pace. So work on it. And then if you start to see it kind of more and more often, you can kind of do more drastic options there.
Sure. And understanding that it's not always easy, especially when you have lots of guests out, right? You don't know what you're going to get. And your members obviously know the course well, you know them, different management. But I know that a lot of operators in the daily fee or resort space use this because they get post-round complaints, right? And somebody might have played a resort and paid $250, and then a week later they say, hey, this round that we played, just got back from our trip, it was 5 hours, it was horrible, worst experience ever, I want my money back, right? And then what do you do as a manager? It's like, well, we're so sorry, and please don't slander our name online, and I understand that you're angry, and it's back and forth. So what this particular manager said that, well, it used to be a 10 deep email correspondence, and very often the player is, or the customer's right in the end, right? And you have to just say, yeah, we're sorry, we validate, right? Because if you fight it, it gets worse. But he said now what he does is, well, he just pulls up this data exactly as we said. He looks at, hey, our systems identified the round that you played with us on this day at that time, and the round time that you actually came through was within 5 minutes of our goal time. And in fact, you were delaying a group behind you on hole 7 for 15 minutes until we chatted to you, and thankfully you picked up your pace. How would you like to proceed with this conversation, right? So it's and then normally at the end, right? So from a management time spent and rain checks given or comps given, it just gives you the confidence that there's data to back you, and it's not a he said, she said. Where pace of play, we've learned earlier, is so polar in its experience. if it's bad, it's very bad. But very often the perception is that it's been bad. And this is one thing that we also need to point out is that sometimes a playing group is just really quick and they're playing into the back of the group in front of them, thinking they're extremely slow. Meanwhile, these guys are completely compliant and on pace, but the perception is that they're not. So with the data, then obviously you have that. But one of the things that's helpful over and above that individual history of a group is that, you also have a profile on each player. So our team has blocked this out because we don't want to point any fingers. But here's a list of player names, basically on the left. Imagine that, and then you've got a number of rounds tracked, obviously, that this player has played, and they get a breakdown of how often were they on pace, slow, or a delayer, right? So that's what's the system, how that's spits that out. And then there's with the new system that we're upgrading everyone to, there's a breakdown, how many tee times and what tee times did they play, 8, 9, 10, 11, and what was their status in terms of delayer, slow, delayed, or they were perfectly on pace. So from a sort of more broad-based member management point of view, is that something that's useful to you and the team, especially also when it comes to who gets to play when, right?
Yes, I think that would be extremely useful.
So what we're often seeing is that if you don't have a system, you don't have data for your pace of play policy to have any sort of teeth, you need to get quite aggressive, and that is extremely uncomfortable, right? So having the data, you can actually have an educational conversation, and that's exactly as you said earlier, you can then look at a specific round and you can say, hey, here's an example where things didn't go so well. How can we help you be better next time, right? Because players, we know that they don't want to be slow. They want to hold up others, but sometimes they do. And if they have the information, we can actually educate them. So then the last point, remember, we want to look at 3 ways in which this can be done better. The first was live management. The second one was holding the members accountable in various ways. And the third one is what I'm personally fascinated by, optimizing the setup and really understanding your course based on data. So here's a sort of end of season report that's just recently closed. You've obviously been super busy this year again, and you brought in your entire season's play, every single round that was 18 holes in 3 hours 48 minutes versus your goal time of 4 hours. So a lot of our operators, because they have the data and our system allows for that, will run different goal times throughout the day. So there may be an adjustment up or down, and then also potentially tighten intervals. I can see immediately that they've got extremely quick first hour of play. Tell us a little bit what your setup is like around that and what the benefits are for you.
Yeah, so our first tee time goes out at 7:30. So between 7:30 and 8, we only allow singles and twosomes. And what we noticed kind of before we started doing that, you'd have singles and twosomes behind foursomes, having to go through them all day, slowing up the pace for everybody throughout the day. So we really wanted to push those quick groups off early. Changed our 7:30 to 8 to 5-minute increments instead of 10. And then from 8 to 9, we only allow threes and foursomes. So just trying to get that morning groups to be in, and you could tell that the way we can see it and get the information, we're also trying to get those faster groups that we notice off from 8 to 9, threes and foursomes. And then you'll notice kind of a little bit of increase in pace after 10 o'clock. So again, we have those big groups of guests staying in our lodge. So we push them to go off after 10 a.m. So, you get your big guest groups going off a little later in the day, get those quick groups going out in the morning. And then you got your normal afternoon rounds.
Yeah, I think that's really well managed. And then do you make any changes to the, let me actually flip a slide here. So here's what that looks like in the data. There's a tighter goal time that you're running early because you're challenging these players to really go fast, and then it jumps up. So do you have any considerations here around intervals, and what is your thinking around that?
Yeah, so we put our 7:30 to 8 singles and twosomes at a 3 hour interval, 3 hour pace. And then after that, we push it back to the 4 hours that we try to keep on pace. But yeah, we definitely push those morning 7:30 to 8 tee times to play as quick as they want, and yeah, those singles that go off in the morning need to play in 3 hours or less.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we see this applied successfully very often. And what you're basically doing is you're starting your day at a fast pace. You're pulling the rest of your day along, almost setting the standards. But the opportunity from a capacity point of view is if your player is really going that much more quickly, you can actually tighten the intervals, which might normally be run at 10 minutes or so, to say 7 or even faster. And you're actually creating capacity. In your case, where you're allowing singles and twosomes, you're not losing capacity, because remember, tee time availability is obviously at a premium. You want to get as many players out and happy as you can. So how can you do it right for them? So this is a fantastic strategy to deploy. Yeah, so the variable goal times coming in, and you can see that these are singles and twosomes. Our system logs that, and it obviously gets that data from Jonas in this case, or whatever the T sheet. And this is an average round time that is absolutely flying, right? So they must have a lot of fun and be grateful for that, right? And it's exactly as you're saying. If you unleash a member twosome that those are quick players in the 10 a.m., they're just going to be frustrated and playing into the guest groups. So it's really smart to segment that, and we always encourage to consider what are different goal times that you can actually run according to data, and very often that staggers throughout the day. And so peaks sometimes even beyond what your average goal time is, because we have to set things up in a way that we can allow for that and then speed things up again. But because you're managing things more tightly, then in line with how the course sort of flows throughout the day, you can actually get really, really high quality results, because you just got so much more line of sight with the system. And that means happier players, right? There's no pace play accidents, but also we're creating more capacity, which means, in the daily fee space, more dollars. In your space, more happy players out there. The other thing that's important to look at and understand is what's the hole by hole runtime, and how can we dial that in? What are some of the things that you've learned, and how did you get to a sort of baseline, a first assumption set on how long each hole should play, and then how have you dialed this in over time?
Yeah, so throughout the season, you kind of, like I said, that whole 10, you started to see it get really delayed. But then throughout the season, I'm seeing that whole 3 is consistently playing a few minutes ahead. So I'm always back and forth with Tag Marshall. So we actually took a few minutes off of 3, added a few minutes to 10, basically as a hidden turn time, as a hidden halfway house time. So yeah, I'm constantly looking at that, and then obviously, throughout you can see certain days are playing a lot harder. Doesn't contain to this as much, but I've noticed that every 16th day, hole 3 is really playing slow actually that day. Most likely, and we noticed because the pin on hole 16, on the 16th day, front left, right by an edge that dropped you 20 feet off. So it just gives you a lot of that information that you can use.
Yeah, it's and like I said earlier, it's incremental, right? So again, if you can shave off a minute here, 2 minutes there, 3 minutes here, and you're consistently doing that, that's when you get your big results. And it's like you said, so this is a full month, that's April. But if you're looking at a single day and then you have an outlier, why did this whole play so much over what we anticipated? And then you look at your pin placement, there might be an answer, right? But very often we see operators that are seeing trends where certain holes are performing poorly, and then they're like, well, what can we do, right? Can we make the rough a bit easier to play? Are we going to choose easier pin placements here as a norm? And sometimes even just a single very low cost a design adjustment, like, hey, let's take out this little tree or this little bush or do this one thing different. then changes how things flow in, and you cannot know what to do unless you have data. And then once you've made the change, you then test, yeah, is it giving us the results that we're anticipating? So again, incremental, and it's great to see that you're really tightly dialed into your whole by whole goal times. Obviously, very well versed with the system at this point. So a big question, and you must tell us about the concession logo and icon here. I'm sure there's a story, but what's the members' responses, and to what extent are they responding to it? But tell us about the logo first. It's front and center here.
So the logo comes back from the 1969 Ryder Cup, where Jack Nicklaus conceded a 2 to 3 foot putt to Tony Jacklin, and that's kind of the first time. It's an act of sportsmanship. The first tie in Ryder Cup history, which U.S. Retained the cup either way. So it was really just that act of sportsmanship that brought the concession alive. And our designers are Tony Jacklin and Jack Nicklaus, and that's the picture on 18 when he conceded the putt.
That really is a piece of history.
Yes, absolutely. It tells a story.
And the right team retained the cup.
Yeah. So the so the conceding of the putt wasn't too big of a deal, but it was just the first time it's really happened, and it was just that big of an act of sportsmanship.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Tell us about the member response, members guess, because ultimately this is what you're here for and get judged by.
Absolutely. The members responded very well to it. They actually love it. Most importantly, because our members are very aware of pace here and they want to play fast. So they know having this kind of consistency and efficiency to be out there and trying to keep that pace moving. They absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's the what did I say? The proof's in the pudding is when you eat it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great to hear. And yeah, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. But I just want to commend you again, you and the team, for putting in such a consistent effort. And we obviously benchmark all of our courses according to data, and I know that the three things that make the biggest difference in performance is the T-sheet integrated, and is there a willingness to assign or have the auto assign feature on, so that you know this is a two-some, a threesome, foursome, and this was their exact tee time when they started their round, right? So we need to have a handle on that sort of baseline data, because one of the things about data, and you must excuse my French here, but it's bullshit in, bullshit out, right? So the more discipline we have in collecting data, the more we can then do with that data. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is really logging interactions out on the golf course. And you're doing this because obviously you've got multiple people going out at multiple times. It's so helpful to know, hey, this group was already spoken to by my colleague 2 hours ago, right? And this is what was said, and this is how they responded. So you can hand over. But also in post-round scenarios, having this conversation, or knowing, hey, we actually got this group that was 10 minutes out back on pace, so we were successful. Or in this case, we spoke to them, but they still finished 20 minutes slow. What could we have done differently, right? So taking the time and the effort to log these interactions is key. And then the last one is to really learn from the data, right? You can never know enough about your business, which in this case is what happens out on the golf course. And having a willingness to understand that, look at the incremental nature of improvement here. And this is where we're so lucky to have some amazing customer success people on our team. Many of them are PGA pros that have sat in your seat. They know exactly what it takes to run a golf course, and then with their help, dig into their data and learn more about it, and get familiar with the stats and analysis. So those are normally the three success factors, and then you're always going to continue improving. Jeremy, let's see if there's any questions. Here's one. question, how does it work with private residents and their personal carts? And people may not want to be tracked or have an install. You don't have that problem?
So we don't have that problem. We don't have any private carts on the course. We are
Yeah.
actually in a community.
Yeah.
We are completely separate from that community. Our owner owns the golf course and the clubhouse, and the community is owned separately. And we do have a good amount of members that are in the community, but we do not allow any private carts onto the golf course.
Yeah, so in part you've answered the question here. So what we've seen work, and there's a good example at the quarry, which is down the road in Naples, where they have probably 150 or 200 private carts, but they allow them on the golf course, right? So then how do you make sure that players are compliant and their 17-year-old grandkids don't mess up your conditioning? And they don't just go and sneak a few holes and get in the way of regular play. How do you make sure that that there's enough willingness to come on board and get tracked? And what we're seeing, and that was also asked in this question, what if the members don't want it? Well, the simple question is, well, what do they not want? They don't want to be tracked when they're off the course, right? It's sure, like privacy, not a problem. So the way that we work around this is twofold. Firstly, we'll only track you, and the tracking only goes live on the map once you enter the golf course. So that's the problem solved. Yes, if your golf cart is lost somewhere or it's stolen, well, then you can ask, and on request, we will then look at where is it right now. And we've actually recovered quite a few carts that have gone walkabouts. And the second one is, well, how do we get this started? Because members obviously, especially if there's residents have got a lot of sway, and some of them may be really noisy and say, over my dead body, I don't want it. Well, you can start with what you can control, right? And very often that's your own fleet. So get them tracking. And then over time, you can then assert a bit of pressure and say, hey, we now have to increase the trail fees if you want to use your own cart, because we need to have controls in place for X, Y reasons. And then over time, you're saying, well, it would make sense if we could just track you, because we've taken away the barrier. We're not tracking if you're not on the course, and it helps everyone if we've got everyone on the map. And we want to make sure that you've got the best possible round, and the people in front of you don't slow you down, right? So that's why we need your data too. So control the controllables and then build out from that. And very often, the change doesn't have to be everything all at once, but it can be phased. And sometimes, well, there might be a very strong management team that can stomach these conversations. They might just say, everyone gets tracked, done, right? But I haven't seen that often. Let's see if there's another question. We have one more minute. Are the carts tracked 24/7 even when not on the course? Good question. Yes. Well, obviously, there's a theft risk potentially if you're thinking about your own cart fleet. And one of the things that's obviously possible is you can turn on a geofencing. So anything that moves at night will trigger an alert, and then you get notified. And we've had this, like I said, cart theft is a real thing. And then very often they can be recovered. Cool. I think. Yeah, perfectly on time. Jeremy, thank you so much. I know all of you have been on. Like we said, you're going to get a PDR credit. You don't have to do anything. We've got your details, and we'll send it out to you. Just a quick shout out to, we've got a learning management system that teaches how to set up the geofencing and how to set up food orders and what have you, and how to use the data in little sort of bite-sized videos. And we now have, as of recently, a PDR accredited module in that. So if you're still chasing PDR credits, give us a shout. There's a really nice pace of play and play experience management module in there that you can, even if you're not a Tag Marshal partner, that you get a credit for. And lastly, a big shout out to our team. Joey Walters actually lived in Bradenton for a long time. He's our GM in Atlanta. And David Hamilton, our VP of Business Development. I think David's on. He's an Augusta resident, and Sean is our local partnership hero. Jeremy, any last sentiments to share with what's ahead for you guys now? Are you shutting down play, or are you going to continue? What do the next few months look like?
So we're going to do our big maintenance verifications for 6 weeks starting July 7th. Other than that, we're starting to plan for this senior PGA in the upcoming season. So getting excited for that.
Yeah, no doubt. And congrats again. We'll certainly look out for that. And maybe we'll send David or Joey to brush up on their golf, and they can represent us.
Anytime. I think you need to come as well.
Digging at their edge here. No, fantastic. Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time with us and giving us such a fascinating look behind the scenes. All the best for the big event next season, and enjoy a bit of downtime now and look out for yourself. So yeah, it'll be busy, no doubt. And also you need to, as much as your members are probably excited, they also want to get a lot of play in before things get closed down.
Absolutely.
And prep for the event. All right, Jeremy and everyone who was on, thank you so much for your time, and all the best, and enjoy a bit of downtime now in the Florida summer.
Thank you, Bodo.
Thanks, and see you soon.